Is there life after death? Welcome to the Mystery Teachings with me, Katerina Satori. And in this video, I'd love to dive into this conversation, all things continuity of life after death, also known as reincarnation. And I've been fascinated by this topic for many, many years because no matter what wisdom teachings and what wisdom lineages, whether it's from the East or from the West or anywhere in between, every wisdom lineage would cover their own perspective of what happens to the soul after the soul releases the body through the process of death. And whenever you interact with visionary art, such as the art of Alex Gray, and he has a most incredible painting that demonstrates when the soul leaves the body through the third eye, and the soul is being watched by thousands and thousands of eyes, the eyes of the spirit guides and the eyes of the spirit allies. Look up Alex Gray visionary art, and that was one of my favorite paintings. So not only have been fascinated by this topic, but I also have experienced my own version of leaving the body through my work with incredible and powerful teacher ayahuasca. And when you drink that plant, it really teaches you what happens after death. It actually prepares you to meet that portal with trust, curiosity, and completely without fear. When you study ancient Tibetan lineage, they have a whole manual that's called the Book of the Dead. And there's instructions that were left to us by those sacred teachers, how to prepare consciousness, how to support somebody who going through that death tunnel, right? It's almost like a death tunnel that happens through the 40 days. And when a soul is not prepared to go through that tunnel, us people who left on this side, on the side of the living, can really support the soul through the transition by chanting mantras, by lighting candles, and you can go deeper into the process itself in the book called Tibetan Book of the Dead. So is there a life after death? To me, that question is so clear. To me, there is a continuity of life, and not only because of everything I've read on this topic and every wisdom and spiritual lineage that I've studied, whether it is from the East, such as India or Buddhism, whether it's from the West, Theosophy, and different teachings of study of the soul or the spirit science, like anthroposophy. I probably did not pronounce it right, but if you dive into the study of theosophy, theosophy is translated the love of wisdom, and you dive into the world of channeled information or mediumship information, where we can access information from the world of spirit. We can do it ourselves, but it usually takes a lot of training. First of all, to silence the mind and to enter a meditative state of stillness, to begin to hear the voice of our soul and the voice of our spirit, right? And then to establish the contact with the spirit world. Usually people begin to work with their own set of spirit guides, right? Or their guardian angels. And then when we raise our vibration so we can handle the frequency of much higher and higher potency, then we can start communicating with beings known as ascended masters, such as Saint Germain, right? Very, very famous ascended master, or Yeshua, or Mary Magdalene, or Mother Mary. All of those beings who were humans, just like us, and they activated their light body, they activated their inner divine blueprint to such a degree that they did not need to incarnate any longer, and they became to serve the world and to guide humanity and other civilizations as ascended masters, right? So they went through the fullness of soul ascension process, and they are not bound to the material plane anymore. Here's the thing about reincarnation. There is such a process as death and rebirth. And since we are part of nature, right? We humans, we're part of nature. And no matter how sometimes we forget that, right? If we remember that we are part of nature, then the laws of nature affect us. And if you look at seasons, that the fall or the summer is followed by the fall is followed by the winter. And when the winter comes, it looks like everything is dead. All the leaves, everything that is blooming goes through the process of death, right? And every spring, life returns. So when we look at nature, there is a process of death and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth. We are part of nature, so we under the laws, the universal laws of death and rebirth. And there are many books written on this topic. One of the ones that I can recommend for you is called Many Lives, Many Masters, where there was really skilled hypnotherapist that used the process of regression, right? So when you go under a deep trance and you can regress yourself or be regressed by a skillful therapist into a recollection of your previous incarnation. I was so fascinated by past life regression that I actually trained myself how to do that. And this is a skill that I have had in a previous lifetime. To me, it was so easy. You know, when you pick up a skill that is very easy for you, whether it's a skill of music or a skill of a language or a skill of a past life regression, it is not random. There is a high chance and a high possibility that you have developed that ability in one of your past incarnations. And this is why, you know, the topic of a past life, and I see the beautiful butterfly just going by me when I was talking about past life incarnation. It becomes so fascinating. You know, it takes the heart of a child to actually open up the mind and to let go of that inner skeptic that says, show me proof. But you know, the world of the soul is the world of magic, the world of quantum reality, the world of mystery. And mysteries do not open to the demand of a skeptical mind. Mysteries, eternal mysteries, such as, is there a life after death? What about immortality? What about continuity of life? All of those open up to a pure heart that is innocent, that is available, that is willing to open up in that sense of innocence, right? So this is why it takes that heart of a child when we approach the world of mysteries, when I approach the world of the spirit. But I wanted to point you to two books, actually three. Book number one, Many Lives, Many Masters. Book number two, Journey of Souls, where a very famous hypnotherapist regressed 3,000 of his clients. And he went through decades of that research and classified what he gathered, his research, into the topics. And it's a fascinating book called Journey of Souls. I highly recommend for you to read it. Another book that I personally love so deeply, it's called LSD and the Mind of the Universe. And it's written by Christopher Bash, by PhD, right? This is, you know, whenever I recommend books on the afterlife, they're not only written by mystics, they're written by scientific mystics or mystical scientists. And that is like such a powerful blend where you take a scientist who believes in hardcore science and they go through a spiritual awakening, they go through elimination of their mystical essence, and then they gather and synthesize their research and their life experience and put it into the book so you and I can dive into their discovery. The reason I love this book, LSD and the Mind of the Universe, this is a scientist, this is a PhD scientist who decides to go on the journey and administered to himself with a supervision, with a medical supervision, a very high dose of LSD because of his desire to understand the mind of the universe. And what he writes, what he experiences, what he tracks is absolutely mind bending. So when you read these books and when you give yourself this genuine inquiry, right? If you follow Tibetan tradition, they will just ask you to meditate on death for a year or two. And when you search understanding, when you genuinely seek an insight, it will arise from your own consciousness. You know, I like to blend my inquiry, so I lean on books, I lean on my own meditation contemplation, and I go to very powerful psychedelic plants that dissolve ordinary states of consciousness and reveal mysteries to me in a way that I can integrate and I can let go of this unnecessary fear of death. Death is a portal to a new life, right? So if I know that, I can prepare my consciousness to meet that death with curiosity, with presence. And imagine what is possible when we can choose consciously how to walk through that portal of death, not with fear, but with readiness, with curiosity, with unconditional trust. This is what ancient Egyptians did. This is what civilization of Atlantis and Lemuria did back in time. They consciously prepared themselves to go through the portal of death. So death was not something that they feared. Death was something that they deeply understood and they were deeply fascinated by. I wonder what would be possible if we do the same. If we let go of this unnecessary fear of death, but we become curious about this powerful portal and we become ready with our consciousness to meet it. And finally, when I talk about past life, I always like to use the example of such musical prodigies like Mozart and Beethoven, who were musically gifted from very, very early age. And I always wondered, you know, what are the chances that that was the skill that they've developed in their previous lifetime? Because the soul carries on the soul memory. We lose our personal identity when we go through the portal of death, but what remains is our essence. Our deepest progression of the soul remains. So the next lifetime, when you come back, you literally begin where you left off. So whatever evolution of your consciousness you were able to develop one particular lifetime, you start from there and you keep going further. That's why each lifetime we awaken faster and faster and faster, and we develop our skills and we create and we finish the mission that we have not finished the previous lifetime, because one lifetime is very, very brief. Is very, very brief to learn everything that we truly desire to learn on the level of the soul, to create the impact, to weave a sense of beauty, to dwell in the sense of magic of this very, very sensuous, delightful existence. This was Katerina Satori, and I hope I ignited a deeper sense of trust for you to get curious about reincarnation, to really begin to follow that curiosity and to learn everything you can about what mystical teachings talk about when it comes to continuity of life. And if you'd like to go deeper, leave me a comment, ask me a very specific question. I read them, and maybe we can do another video on this topic. Is there a life after death? My answer is resounding yes. This was Katerina Satori, and thank you for joining me on the Mystery Teachings.